Okay, so let's just stretch. Just sitting for a few minutes. I want it to really sort of just pull that part of the back in, so your thymus has a bit more of a lift. Let's try a little bit of palming just to relax the eyes. You're just rubbing the hands to warm them up a little bit. Placing the hands over the eyes. So the fingers overlap on the forehead above the bridge of the nose. The eyes are closed, the palms are not touching the eyelids, but you're trying to block out all of the light. So if you open your eyes momentarily, then you shouldn't be able to see any light coming through. Total blackness. And we just hold the hands over the eyes for a few minutes to relax the eyes. And then the hands down. And now we want to blink. blink strongly. So what I do, I just tighten the belly, this exercise where we pull the belly in and just really close the eyes, squeeze the eyes closed, and then everything opens up. The eyes pop out of your head and then you pull it back in and open. So really going right inside and then expanding outwards. And then we just do some quick blinks. So just quickly, just blinking the eyes. And now just moving the eyes. So let's set the hands in prayer posture to start with. And then bring the hands up, pointing with 2 fingers. So you're holding the 3rd and the 4th finger behind your thumbs. Okay, so you just try and keep your head still and just glance down to the left fingers. And then you're using your eyes to trace from one set of fingers to the other. So looking left and then looking right, but using your eyes to trace a line down through the arms. So there's a point in the middle where you're having to feel as though you're looking behind yourself. And then just bringing the hands up again. And now just bringing the hands up and down, again, trying to keep the head still, but the eyes follow. So as your hands go up, your eyes are sort of looking up with them. And then you bring your hands down, the eyes follow until your eyes are looking down on top of the fingers. And one more. And then just the hands up and out again. Again, with the fingers, 2 fingers pointing. Bringing the hands in and out one at a time. Just let the eyes follow one of the hands, either the hand that comes in or the hand that goes out. It doesn't really matter. And just trying to keep the head still in the middle. And then just the hands out. And now just turn your head towards one of the hands. Look at the tips of the fingers, and then just bring fingers in until it's touching your nose. So you're trying to keep your eyes on your fingers. So we're just exercising the focusing of the eyes. And now you're looking, if you can, look beyond the fingers, so into the distance. And then as the hand comes in, bring your eyes to the fingertips. Turning the other side, and the same thing. And now let's just bring the hands behind again. And now just circling the head. So close the eyes and just making a circle with the head. And the other way. And then the head just back. And now the same thing, but with just the eyes. So it's like you're trying to keep the head still. I mean, the head's going to move a little bit. As big a circle as you can with the eyes. And you're trying to just keep the movement smooth and regular. The eyes are so used to flitting around. It's quite an effort to control their movement. And then just change direction. And then just back to the middle. And now let's just try the palming again. just to finish that. But the eyes are relaxed. They're not trying to look at anything. They're not trying to focus on anything. They're just relaxing into themselves. So that's the idea of these exercises. When the eyes are relaxed, then the mind is relaxed. And then just palming. And then the hands down. Again, pulling in the belly, squeezing the eyes closed, expanding the belly and opening. Try and avoid looking at anything. So as soon as we open the eyes, we tend to focus them on the objects in our environment. So here we're just trying to keep the eyes blurred. They're not looking at anything, they're simply expressing something inside you. And then just a few quick blinks. Just meditate for a minute or so. And what we want to do is feel the two ends of the line of sight. So my eyes are sort of coming out, collecting information. Even if I try to blur them, they're still seeing light. I want to feel the other end of the line that looks inside. I'm not looking inside by turning my vision into myself like this. I'm just sucking back along the line, away from the outside world and into my interior. So I think of the internal as being like the Freudian unconscious. So it's sort of locked away. What we would like to do is encourage it to open up, to start to feel, opening the heart, feeling what's inside. So we spend lives so concerned with external images. To actually bring our attention inside is quite a revolutionary act. For me, there are various breakthroughs that one makes in one's life. For me, probably the most significant one, the first one was leaving home. After the second year of university, having been terribly homesick, suddenly realizing that I'd broken away. I no longer wanted to see any of them again. I mean, I did see them again because they were my family, but I didn't hanker after their company. So that's something that's absolutely necessary. So you need to make the break from what I call tribe, family, and self. And then the other big breakthrough is finding a teacher, finding something to practice and developing a practice, putting aside hours in the day to do your own directed work. And it needs to be directed to start with, otherwise you're just practicing self. And then the next big breakthrough, I think, is learning to turn the attention of that work inside. So you're looking at your own ugliness, really. You know, having spent all those years believing your mother and thinking that you're wonderful. Is all the teacher is trying to do is just gently, without frightening you away, trying to get you to turn your attention inside so you can see what a complete mess you really are. And then you'll do something about it. That's what therapy is all about. Therapy is just always trying to bring you back to look inside and what's your motivation for this feeling? Where's it all coming from? I remember at school once, the teacher hadn't arrived, so that we were all restless and bored. So one kid suddenly said, let's have a vote and vote who's the most handsome kid in the class. It was a boys' school, so all boys. And of course, I'd been told by my mother that I was the most handsome boy alive. And so I really believed her. So I just knew that I was going to come top. I just knew that I would win the competition. And of course, I didn't come bottom, but I came very close to the bottom. And that's when I realized she's fucking lied to me all these years. That's when the rot set in, really, the disillusionment. Okay, so let's stand up now. Getting deep, close to the ground and moving. Lifting my heel and feeling this, like this tendon here that pulls. So I lift the heel, this opens here in the groin, and that starts me being pulled across. So when you're moving, it should feel like a piece of elastic that's pulling rather than a thrust. As soon as one heel goes down, the other one comes up. There's this connection between the heels. You're only allowed to have one heel on the ground at a time. Okay, let's just bring it up. So that should have really stretched this area open now so that we can feel the sinking, feel the split at the sacrum, taking your weight down each leg. And feel the sacrum as though underneath the sternum so that this can drop heavily, but this can lift. We generally keep the sacrum just a little bit too far back because that gives us a bit of space, and it also means that we can look down on what we're doing. We want the feeling that if anything, we're looking up at what we're doing. We're under here like a fountain coming up the body. And the main adjustment really is this part of the spine. And when we do the crossing the arms at the back, let's just try this for a sec. Feel the part of the spine beneath the arms just dropping down. The sacrum is stretching that part of the spine. And then feel the part above where your arms are crossed, part of the spine above there that's being stretched upwards from your thymus, from the top of your head. Back to riding horse with that same feeling in the spine. Just feel how difficult it is, how difficult riding horse is, how the arms out like this is quite corrupting of your spine. So we really have to keep our attention on the vertical, on the down and the up. Come forwards onto the front of the foot and go into holding the golden urn. So it's like the opposite of ward off. So with ward off, the elbows are out and the palms are facing you. And then you just drop the elbows down and flatten out the hands. The feeling is that the forearms are pointing down into your dantian, and you just come off the heels. So now you're bouncing around on the front of the foot. Trying not to fall over. Keep the sacrum relaxed, so that it's the heavy keel of the sacrum that stabilizes you. And then rocking back onto the heels, but one at a time. So I come round this foot, and then I come around this foot, and it gets me into a nice round riding horse. And then let's just rock forwards again, holding the golden urn. And then we want to rock back onto the heels, but let's just try it differently now. So normally we just go like this. So basically I'm going through my dantian, out of my ming men and around. So now I want to go down the figure of eight effectively. So I'm going down the figure of eight here, reaching behind myself and then coming through the min meng and out of here and around, and then the other one. So instead of doing the circle, I've done the figure of eight. And what that does, it just accentuates the heels. Now I feel like I've got these two big heels behind me. My bum is sticking back a little bit. So the tail bone is very much connected to the heels. So what we're trying to do is get a sense of the opposable thumb of the heel. So the heel reaching back and then cutting under in the same way that the toes reach forwards and cut under. So I want to sink down here. It's almost like someone's pressing on my head and it's sort of squeezing me. It's squeezing my tail backwards. And then I just roll it a little bit and that cuts it under. Remember when we worked on the figure of eight, everyone was just doing this. They're just flicking their hand over when they went round the bottom. And John was always saying, no, the bottom of the figure of eight has to be at least as big as the top. You know, so we're having to go over the top and then make a really big circle here. This is what we want here. Basically, when we do the circle, we're still doing a figure of eight, but we're just flicking the hand over as we go around the bottom. We're not really doing the bottom of it. And so here we just want to make the bottom really big, like you've got two enormous buttocks and they're just like this. They're pendulous, they're hanging down, dragging on the ground. So your lower body from your dantian down is just substantial, it's meaty, and it's of the ground. Let's try one more, just coming forward. So this is accentuating the upwards, the heart, the thymus, the front of the foot. So the top of the figure of eight, the top circle of the figure of eight is my heart and my head. And the bottom circle is my legs, my sacrum, my tail, my dantian. Feel the heels. The heels are ready to go. They're ready to plant themselves into the ground. And what I want to do is not just cut them under like this. I want to send the heels out. So they're going back and then cutting through me here. You do that by just going down the figure of eight. So I'm going to do this one first. So I'll go over the top of the figure of eight and then just really reach back with the heel here and then cut it under. And then as I continue here, this one goes down. You've just done more to get into the same position. You can get lower. Bring the feet up a bit. And now this is really the same. Working the knees. The knee comes up. The knee comes up. I'm turning my waist to the left. I'm bringing my weight into the left foot and I'm bringing up my left heel. So the leg really has to work hard. And because the heel's coming off the ground, it's got this sort of wobbly instability. And also because the legs really work hard, you're shaking from the effort as well. So all we're trying to do really is just get to the point of awful, uncontrollable shaking. Feel the up. So you're turning towards the up. And then feel the down. So the part you're turning away from. So here, this is really trying to wrap around my heel and come up as though behind me, coming into the Ming Men, the bottom hand. And that is tending to edge my body forwards. So as the hand goes behind, it's like it's pushing the min meng forwards. And then just back. And then let's try some backwards and forwards. Feeling the point of contact. My arm is pushing forwards, but at that point of making contact with the other person who is also coming forwards, I have to pull back here in my shoulder so that I can touch them softly. So rounding out. There's a point where you are effectively moving in both directions at the same time. The hand is moving forwards, but the body is beginning to move back. This, for me, is what makes Tai Chi Tai Chi. So I'm pushing forwards, and it wants to continue like this. So if I just continue pushing forwards, then I'm going to turn towards this corner to get maximum extension. But at that moment of making contact with the other person, I need to be yielding, which means I need to be turning the other way. So my hand is going forwards, and then I turn it back here. And the softening here enables the arm to be continuing on its first circle as the body is actually moving back against it. So here my arm is trying to turn me to the left, but my yielding is turning me to the right. So I'm turning in both directions at the same time. One to extend, to attack, and one to yield. So this is just the pushing hands we used to do. If you haven't had that pushing hands experience, you just can't do it. Effectively, it's just going over the top of the figure of eight. So here I'm going over the top of the figure of eight, and that's what's effectuating this yield. So as I go from an attack to the yield, I'm going over the top of the figure of eight. And then as I go from the yield to the attack, I'm coming around the bottom of the figure of eight. And they're both really important. So as I go over the top, I'm receiving. You're receiving energy from the other person. So I have to make a container for it, and I have to be soft. Then I just take it down into my ground, and then I dig out a little bit of energy to add to that from the ground, and then I come forwards. So it's just the figure of eight. But we really want to feel it. Whenever there's an image, that tends to be what we follow. We're much happier when we're making shapes, when it's the rational mind that we're using. We want to make sure that we feel the emotions involved in each aspect of the figure of eight. And if it means that it's no longer a figure of eight strictly, then so be it. Now let's try a bit the other side. So this side, let's just try and concentrate on the feelings in the hips, in the groin, because it's exactly the same that should be happening here as is happening here in the shoulder, in the beneath the collarbone. So here, this is softening. Beneath my collarbone, it's sucking right in, which enables the arm to come out almost from its socket. The same here. In the inguinal fold here, this sucks right in, enabling the sacrum to release the hip. But it's much harder to feel in the legs. But we just want to make sure we have feeling in the legs as well as the upper body. So in the same way that this releases out, my leg releases out like this. It's the point where the toe heel comes off the ground. Something ripples down the leg and grabs the ground and starts it pulling me back. Going from leg to leg again, but with the same sense of this here opening up in order to pull me into the leg. So it's this opening, it's the heel coming up, it's the leg beginning to bend. All of that is turning me like this. So it's only really the opening here that allows me to turn and roll into the leg. I want to feel it in the hip. Something is opening in the groin. So I turn. And now let's try figurating with the foot. I want to feel the whole range of emotions as I go through the figure of eight. So as I extend, there's like a brightness coming out of me, like an eagerness. I'm eager to come out and make contact. And then here, I'm shyly turning away. from one extreme to another. And it's really difficult because we have to turn. Yeah, so I don't want to just be doing something with a figure of eight. I'm just trying to turn whilst one foot is off the ground. So here I'm turning this way to open up, and then I turn this way, almost like I'm turning my back on the person, and then here. So it's really difficult with the balance. And just keep the eyes soft. So the exercises we did at the beginning for the eyes, just intended to soften your eyes so you're not looking at anything. I'm not latching on things with my eyes. And then this foot. So this is extending, and then this is really almost like winding in. And then let's just try stepping with it. So in order to step, I send my foot out. So effectively at that point, I'm coming up the figure of eight with the foot and the hand. And then at the moment of the foot going down, I'm effectively yielding to that bit of ground that I'm going to land on. I want to land on that bit of ground really softly. That's the point where I go over the top of the figure eight and down or in. So I'm going forwards, and then here I'm going over the top, and then I go around the heel. That gets my heel on the ground, and then I come into the foot, which means I can bring the other foot up. So I send out the foot, and then it's like the big toe goes down, and then I slowly go around the figure of eight in the foot, all the way to the little toe, and then around to the big toe again. So there's been a complete figure of eight with contact on the ground. Go forwards and then yield to the ground. I softly place the foot. I want to feel this point of going over the top of the figure of eight and almost hiding within myself. That's the point where the foot goes down and I start to go around the heel to get my root in the ground. So the bottom of the figure of eight, the heel, that's really just all of the energy from your back. And remember, to see that, you have to turn away from it, because if you try and turn towards it, it's just going to shrink away from you. And you'll be like the dog that's chasing its tail. I turn away here. And then my heel wants to sort of go out like this, and that brings all the energy from around here. Feeling the sacrum heavy. And then just feel it as you give yourself permission for it to swing forward slightly underneath the sternum. There's a sense of relief. You're no longer having to try. You're just there. Feel the legs, they've worked hard. Feel the heels. Or this way, which is more accurate, really. And then just up. Just a little bit of this, just to feel the wobble. Only one heel on the ground. As one comes down, the other one's coming up. So there's quite a long moment when you've got neither heel down. So the heel and the front of the foot are separate, so they can interact. Something comes up one side of the body and down the other side. So by working the foot with the figure of 8, it just brings the foot alive. So it's no longer just this flat lump that's on the ground. So you don't need to have the heel sort of pressed strongly into the ground in order to have a root. The heel can be so softly on the ground, almost like it's got no weight in it. And yet that is still opening up to draw energy up and squeezing energy down. So in a sense, the more firmly I am on the ground, the less energy there is, the more it's just this position of strength and force. So I want this twisting sort of wriggle. Is that the problem with riding horse is that it's just very much like bandy legs. You know, you're sort of very much the container that's containing this. Whereas what we'd like is to be able to, you know, we can sort of really go from one extreme of roundness to a complete extreme of this extruding line. So when we're here like this, it's slipping in and out all the time. There's this sense of something that's just working its way up my spine. And the figure of 8 lends itself to that beautifully. So the figure of 8 is just basically a circle that's been twisted. So it has a waist, it has a little bit in the middle where it's got no thickness. There's no roundness anymore. There's just these two lines crossed. And so you've got the roundness of the top of the figure of 8 and the bottom of the figure of 8, but then you've got this cross in the middle as well.